I'm Sarah Russell.
I'm JQ Walker.
I'm Hind, and we are
The Neurodivergent Report, a research-based podcast by and for neurodivergent brains.
In each episode, we'll explore topics relating to neurodiversity and coping strategies by reviewing the literature and discussing current topics.
We will also have interview episodes where we sit down with experts in the field and listeners like you, with the hope that together we can all learn to heal in community.
However you are able to engage, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Marmy.
I love her house. Could she hear?
No, well, she's
Well, let her
she's
know
82.
because
She's like the most fashionable little lady.
So
yeah,
it's
this is actually her
giving
gut-
like witch cottage core.
Yeah, this
is
is
there
your
a
guest
spiral
house.
staircase in the back?
Yes. It's a
Yeah.
loft, actually. It's not a spiral staircase, but
Okay.
they built this in the 70s out of the back garage. So it's just a loft.
Is there
but
a
usable
grooving
inside.
area?
Yeah. Then there's a bed back there. It's just a little loft. It's not actually like I know. When I was 18, I got to live up here and it felt like I was like super independent. I'm like, oh, it's got its own entrance.
yeah,
So yeah, it was
100%.
awesome.
Incredible.
Okay, that's so
what
great.
state are you in?
I'm in Colorado. Where are you guys? You're on the East Coast, Sarah. I know you're like up in Vermont or Massachusetts.
I'm in Connecticut.
Connecticut.
She's in
Okay.
Connecticut.
Close enough.
I am in the Arabian Peninsula. I'm in Kuwait. So
You
we're-
are.
Yeah,
I've been to fly through, but I've been to the Middle East. How did you guys meet?
that's where I'm from. Yeah.
Online, baby. Also,
yeah.
another
Speaking
connection,
of-
like just like you.
I was gonna say,
you know, we
like
sorta
speaking
just-
of weird connections, like Sam connected you to us, and I got connected with Sarah because she was my ADHD coach, and I found her online. And I could have picked anyone from that company, but I just was like, Sarah, love that, love the blue hair because she had blue strands. I'm going with her.
That's amazing. Okay, and so
Yeah.
Hind, you're in medical school right now.
Done with medical school. I'm
Okay.
now a resident, so
Yep,
it's been
okay.
intense.
That's
Thank you
so
for
intense.
asking.
Yeah, it's an incredible feat to make it through medical school and like that alone, and then to go into residency. I heard that that's even like kind of the battleground of like
Oh
of the
yeah, it's
actual
so
process.
yeah. I mean, you got it.
That's unbelievable. Unbelievable. And I have a
Yeah.
question for you. Sarah, are you knitting?
Yes. So this is a loom.
Okay.
And it's
Oh,
for
I
knitting.
know what it is. I've got them for my children.
Yeah. And then
And you're-
it's gonna be a heart.
Oh gosh.
And I love knitting pocket hearts because they take about 15 minutes, like no brain power. And I can give them away to
I love
nice
this so much. But you're in the middle of a podcast and you're
or
knitting.
grumpy
It's
people.
really funny. This
Oh.
neurodivergent.
One of our guests, we meet with her regularly now. Her name is Gal, and she always says, when Sarah's knitting, I know she's paying attention.
Isn't that so interesting? It's like a thing to do you know what it is? It's physicalizing, which is one of the things we'll probably talk about today, is that ADHD people need embodiment so badly. They need to actually bring that brain into a condensed kind of crystallized form for it to have more meaning and for it to actually land and sit and not be a source of confusion, because we have so much effervescence that happens in the brain that in order to be able to like actually manifest it in a way that has relevance and meaning, we have to put it into a physical experience. And that's one of the fastest ways to actually help, I think, the brain soothe is to climb inside your fascia, is to connect to the
Yeah.
other the conscious or the organ of consciousness. And
I feel like a
not
really
just live in the mind. What?
I feel like a really dumbed down version of what you were saying is like you have to do it to know what it is.
100%. But I think
Yeah,
it's
like,
even more.
I've
It's
been
like
trying to watch crochet videos to learn how to crochet, but it wasn't until I figured out how to turn my own hand that like I actually could make the knot.
So one of the things that's interesting about the neurodivergent mind is that
And
I
I'm
guess
very
it's-
smart.
You are very smart. It's that you don't actually map things out well in three-dimensional spaces until you do it. And so that was one of the diagnosis tools that my doctor originally gave me. He was a specialist in neurodivergence, specifically ADHD. And he like made me draw a square that was three-dimensional, like a cube, basically a cube. not a square, which is why this is funny, because I couldn't do it. I kept missing a line. And he's like, "Are you seeing that you're missing this third dimension?" And I'm like, "No,
Yeah.
I don't see it." And so it was a very telling place to me, which is interesting because the neurodivergent mind that's, I should just say ADHD mind because that's my specialty
Sure.
is the constellation of connection is really strong. I can see things in 3D. Like I got my only math course that I did well in was like geometry. But
Wow.
right, I was very good at geometry because I could see connection, I could see logic, I could see they say that that's one of the leading qualities in like the CIA recruits for strategy and strategic planning is that the ADHD mind can see huge picture and tons of connections, through lines, and does that. But to do it in your brain and to bring it into manifestation, which is what's really interesting, is an act of embodiment. You have to muscularly do it. You can't just go from the seeing into the, idea of it. There's a really
Yeah.
deep of what that does to the nervous system to anchor those thoughts into a physical form. It's very cool.
Thank you for this introduction, Anna. Like we
Go
need
ahead.
now
You're
to
very
go.
cool.
Yeah. And I love how you segued into it perfectly. That's amazing. This is not your first podcast, girl.
This is
We
not my
already know
first
that.
podcast. I know what we're trying to get to, and then I'm like, these people are so cool. Let's just talk about life. And then I'm like, but what they really want is this.
We like both. We really like both.
Yeah.
Can
I
you tell
love
us a little bit
people.
about yourself, Anna? Who are you for the audience?
Who are we all?
Yeah.
What's really funny is
Am
I'm
I
in an
right?
esoteric space because I'm writing my fourth book on the science and soul of stretch and why it relates to our consciousness and how it's moving out. So I'm a little bit like, who are we? What I am is a humble layman who had a lot of pain in her body. It started very young, a lot of health complications that were unexplainable. And I was desperate. I wanted to be a professional dancer. I wanted to have a vital career in acting. And I had a lot of just passion fused, infusion in my life. And my body was really holding me back and was kind of like a prison. It felt like I was 80 years old, even though I was only 18. And that's not hyperbole. That's just kind of a fact. And
Yeah.
so my journey started being like, the searching, right? Trying everything. And then when people didn't have answers, I was like, there's a reason behind this. It doesn't feel like it's in my brain. I don't feel like I'm a hypochondriac. And so I just went down this deep, road, a 25-year road of kind of unraveling the most complicated body system, which is why it's funny about the ADHD mind. Along the way, I discovered some cool stuff about what this fascia is and how it's supposed to behave. And I created a kind of an actual like biotechnology, a way to relate to the fascia and activate it in very specific ways that is not just stretching. It's kind of like capitalized on remodeling. And what I found was that as we heal the body through these tools and reform it and remodel its cellular structure, it heals our minds. And it really is, this interwoven face of our brain being our organ of mind consciousness, fascia is our organ of body consciousness, and together they create this whole level of kind of who we are and how we sit with ourselves in the world and what we're doing. And so right now I run a company that's dedicated to just healing people and working with people in their bodies to do whatever it is that they need to do, but doing it from instead of kind of like psychiatry or psychology, I work with people's bodies to change lives. And I do it through fascia, which is the connective tissue system in the body. And it's kind of a unknown, kind of relatively new frontier of, I think, health and wellness on both sides of our body and mind. And it's pretty cool. What it does is transformative and really changes life as we know it. That sounds a little bit Star Trek.
No, I think it's beautiful. And I think we have a lot of episodes that kind of lead up to this. We haven't
Mm,
really talked about this before, but a lot of episodes kind of lead to this.
Exactly. That's why I got so excited when she came to us.
yeah.
Because yeah, I've been um I think the first time I heard about fascia, it was from a physical therapist,
Okay.
like a
Yeah.
pelvic floor person. And I was like,
Mhm.
she didn't really explain it to my satisfaction, and I came
Okay.
away feeling like
Well,
I
exactly.
still
It is
don't
this.
know how to help myself.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
The so what factor is really missing, I think, in most of our medicine and psychology. And it's like everybody's got lots of information, but no one really ties it to a practice or a tool or a like. I love what I do because it gives this lens of like biomechanics is a physical reality. And if you apply these same tools that we apply in fascia or in fashion needs a new biomechanical model, which is a whole nother, we can go down science road or we can just stay casual. But the idea is that the so what factor of life is this is really nice to know that there's this thing that does this cool stuff, but so what? Like, how does it apply? How
Mhm.
does it layer back in? How does it influence what I'm wanting to change in myself or what I'm needing to work on in my relationships or right? And when you have practical tools, I find that we kind of maybe people who are neurodivergent are more familiar with tools because we just constantly have to have like
Yeah.
cultivating tool set to
Mhm.
study, to memorize things, to get things off a book and into our memory, to we just are constantly having to adapt. And so the mind of an ADHD person is already primed for this, but I think sometimes people forget that there's really practical ways of, you know, making life changes that is not only in the understanding, it doesn't rest in the mind. It actually can come out in the way we push leverage from our body because of the connection, the way that we, move our bodies changes, how we can work through these things that we're
how
trying
we
to talk through.
feel
A
in the
100%.
moment.
A
Yeah.
100%.
And yeah, I'm a mom of 2 kids, and so I constantly have to teach everything in excruciating detail. And so that's why having tools is really helpful for me. Having
Mhm.
scripts in advance is really helpful for
Yeah.
me because I don't have to
Yeah.
make any more decisions.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Improvisation.
um,
Sometimes tools actually allow you to be more improvisational. Like if you know how to I'm gonna use my language because it's the
Please
biomechanics of
do.
life.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
When you have everything in the body and in life is a load, whether that's from physics of forces and stresses and different influences on our tissues, that also we carry mind loads, we carry weights, we carry the struggles of our experiences, we carry heavy things. And the process of living is how do we mechanically take that load, distribute it, and put it into flow? And so mind load turn into feelings. Feelings need to release to emotions, and emotions are what carry us through to the next moment of realization and actualization. And the same thing is true in the tissues. If I have a hip problem, I am experiencing too much load, not enough, or too much friction on the joint. And so you need to be able to take that load and distribute it and dilute it and then send it into motion in order for it to fully it's called metabolic resolution, where that load is fully dissolved into. So, from a movement perspective, movement is actually the end process of force and load moving through the system. And that is true also for our psychology, right? When we actually finally resolve our emotional contraction with someone or our, the devastation of loss or whatever, and so if you learn these mechanics, you start to be able to leverage through life, I call it, where it's like, oh, I actually know how to spin this load and make a change. And if you learn these basic principles, you can do that in your mind and you can also physically do it because I think sometimes, especially with an ADHD brain, even normal struggles can be overwhelming. Even normal loads become confusion or become overbearing. And so sometimes it's helpful to actually have a different system that can do the same thing. Where if I am having a really hard time bringing coherence to my thoughts or to, manifesting this in action or using my executive function, those are all similar, languages,
Yeah.
same thing, different languages. I can literally go over and if I do traction in my tissues, I'm actually pulling that congestion out of my psyche. The brain in the nervous system and the way it's wired into the fascia allows me to traction thought, which actually creates motion. And therefore it aligns it in coherence, and I can actually see it and then executively move it. So instead of trying to figure it out up here, spin, 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 I can ground it over here, do it in my flesh, and find an outlet, which then lightens my load and allows my body to metabolize through that contracture, whatever that is for the person. So when I say, I guess I'm just saying when you get down to it, having a tool set like that allows you to live improvisationally. You don't have to have everything under control. You can be in a moment with your kid and be like, oh my gosh, there's so much friction here. Hold on. What is it that I want to, how do I want to change this energy movement? How do I want to metabolize this load? Is it through compression, hugging my child? Is it through, pulling myself off my bed and just going out into the sunshine to, you know, um, create, luminosity through the cellular structure of my tissues? I mean, it's literally that kind of, I love the science of practice because it takes mysticism and makes it into mechanical,
Yeah.
actual tools, right?
I love the sun on my face. I always say I'm
Feels
just
so
such a
good.
cat person. I'll go
Oh,
sit
are
in a
you?
window, a sunny little window. Um, yeah, I don't smoke cigarettes anymore, but I used to always go outside and smoke a cigarette and sun my face every single time. It was like the good thing that I was doing for myself.
There is a reason we are attracted to sun. It's very important deep down
And there
into our
are so many benefits too. I mean, was I really addicted to smoking cigarettes or was I just addicted to like breathing intentionally?
really
Yeah.
good, really good twist of a rotation in the leverage of mechanics. Spinning the awareness to that good question point,
Yeah.
which pivots us.
Anyway,
Um,
okay, Anna, how
oh,
did you get into this stuff? How did you become sort of an expert in your field?
I mean, I think it was just trial and error and a
Yeah.
stubbornness and a a lack of. I just was unwilling to accept that my whole life was going to be defined by the state of my body. What's
Yeah.
really interesting is that there was an alignment. I was always neurodivergent, and looking back, I saw it all the way through my childhood. But I literally got diagnosed. I was 20, I think 21, um, and within the next 3 months is when I started having um, awareness of all of this stuff that was going on, right? And these two things collided that all of a sudden I got medication, and then I started being able to have the focus to spend hours, and I'm talking about like hours, 3 to 5 hours at a time sometimes, dissecting the pathways, the fascial currents and the way that they run and how they
Oh,
need to open,
okay.
the neurological implications of moving this. So one thing that's interesting about fascia, both from a practical and, kind of spiritual perspective, is that fascia has um, cells in it that contract very similar to a muscle cell, which gives it its own animation. It is not an inert substance. It actually has its own flux, like muscles flex. I call it the fascia flux, and you can control it on command. You can move it, and it's more subtle than a muscle contraction that produces, like, let's say 10 gigahertz of amplitude, but a fascia is like maybe 2 in gigahertz. And the reason that it's more subtle is because you have fascia in your eyeballs, you have fascia in your throat, and if every time your fascia
Everywhere.
contracts,
Yeah.
you'd feel like this jolt. So it's very low underneath the kind of radar of your physiology functioning, but it's kind of the ground-based substance that works it out. And so the way I got into this was I would have to literally lay for 3 hours a night trying to foam roll and release, and we're talking, this is now 25 years ago. People still don't know what really fascia is and what it does for the body. It's starting to become
Yeah.
more a conversation, but back then it was even more fringe, and people didn't really, I mean, I was a Pilates teacher and a yoga teacher, and so I knew foam rolling. I had studied Feldenkrais and a lot of these other somatic techniques, and they were all great because they were all trying to release tension, right? It's a common thread in the kind of therapy side of fascia. But I got to a point at 18 where I'd go out and dance and I would need 3 hours to heal what was damaged during my dance. And I'm like, I'm working on the wrong side of the equation. If I'm constantly, it's almost like dieting and being like, I'm always eating too much, but then I try to go out and work out to get rid of it. It's like it's the wrong side of the equation. I'm like, I can't always try to release enough tension to live a healthy life. I got sick of lying on a bed trying to release, be only to initiate tension when I got up. So this fascia flux thing, the way I got into it is I'm like, what if I could make that physical thing that was happening from the foam roller, but I could do it on purpose? What if I could actually execute this contraction, this flux? And if I could do it on purpose, maybe I could do it when I'm doing a plie, which is a term in ballet for bending your knee. What if I could do it when my leg is trying to like lift to the ceiling? What if I could make that flux be part of my movement? So I'm not releasing tension after it. I'm just not putting tension in to begin with. And that's really where the change happened and where this came from is I'm like, I actually can choose how my body responds. I can choose how fascia behaves. And my digestive issues immediately cleared up. My lung and respiratory problems that took a little bit longer, mostly because of the structural shape of my breathing apparatus and the rib cage connections. But I, went from running one day and feeling like I was a trained marathon runner because that was my conditioning, chosen conditioning sport for my dance. And then 3 days later, I'd go out and I'd feel like a 10-pack-a-day smoker. And that's not like an exaggeration. It was literally that volatile. And I was like, I got to fix why my fascia is so volatile and understanding it. And that's kind of what led me down this road of like, I wanted permanent change. I wanted to be able to keep from going back into whatever that pathology was. So, and then I happen to be a creative ADHD person. I'm like, this is actually a system, right? Like I started off thinking I was teaching Pilates with different techniques and different
Yeah.
principles. Like, actually, this is not what is happening. And I remember this moment where I went to try to find a job, and this lady's like, what are you teaching me? I'm like, Pilates, I need the job. I was like 20. I was in LA. I'm like, I need the job. And she's like, you're not teaching Pilates, girl. And I'm like, you're right. It's called GST. And so that's kind of the origin of why I wanted. It wasn't just like to feel relaxed and to have, a grounding thing. I was like, I wanted radical physical health transformation. And I didn't know any other way to get it except trying to figure it out because it's not presented like to your point, Sarah. I think we were like, people don't teach you how to the so what factor. How am I going to change my life? How am I going to like, what are the steps and the very real actionable items that I can do to make change? Right.
I have so many
Everybody tells you
questions.
to just breathe, but nobody shows you how to breathe.
Exactly. That's one of the questions is I feel related to your story. As someone who has chronic pain, I'm using Pilates and I found instant relief through Pilates. That's why I've been consistent because as neurodivergent people, we need instant gratification to continue something. And I found it in Pilates because all my joints were stretching in the right way and I felt release. But then we would go and do it again, like rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. I now, as you're speaking, understanding that what I'm doing is what you used to do in your early stages, which is try to release the tension that was already created. So, how would you recommend for someone, first of all, to identify? Is it just chronic pain? What is it? Do they need to know that they need to tackle their fascia, and how can they be more intentional in that?
That's a really good question, Hind. It's so what's interesting about fascia, which is why it was really complicated for me in the beginning, is that fascia as a tissue, like when we talk about the word fascia, you're talking about a type of body tissue, but it organizes an incredible field, like a whole body system. We like to try to help people conceptualize it by like, how the, endocrine system comes with these glands and they're located like this, and this is what the glands do. Okay.
Yeah.
And you have your digestive system and it has the stomach and it empties into the colon, and it processes things. The fascial system literally has an organ that organizes cells around each of your other systems. And so when you have a fascial problem, it can actually show up as a neurological symptom, an autoimmune symptom. It can show up as a gastrointestinal symptom. And so this is what makes it hard is that in a model of medicine that is all about narrowing the aperture to diagnosis, fascia
Yeah.
doesn't fit in. Okay. But in finding solutions to those problems, fascia is the aperture opening. It helps you expand the view and be like, oh, maybe it's not really a gastrointestinal issue. Maybe it's the motility of the viscera that is restricting the type of contraction that needs to happen for the blah, 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 for the microbiome to have good bacteria, for
Yeah.
your bones
Okay,
to
not
not.
to sound like a crazy person, but I've always thought that maybe I'm not really a celiac person, since I was diagnosed at 30 after a prolonged trauma. And the doctor specifically said intestinal lining is consistent with the damage patterns
Oh,
found in
interesting.
celiac disease.
Interesting.
And that's how you get the blood work, and the blood work shows elevated, but
Histamine
I also
levels.
have
Yeah, right.
so much inflammation in my body.
That's right. And
And
that
it's
is
because of
regulated
the
by the,
thyroid.
yep, and fascia is super, super innervated and influenced by our inflammation. It's a tissue that is extremely sensitive to it because it's everywhere, right? It's
As
everywhere.
a
So,
person, yeah, also like the EDS, the Ehlers-Danlos stuff.
yep,
I feel
yep.
like all the connective tissue baddies are going like, "Hey, how do I relate to this?"
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I think that this is the point, is what Henry's saying is that so I would say to someone who's listening, if you have a body problem, assume that your fascia has some involvement, right? It's
Yeah.
not
Which,
just
yeah.
musculoskeletal pain. It's not just like fibromyalgia
Mm.
type symptoms. In fact, it's interesting when it comes to that point where your fascia is expressing it in these really heightened ways. But you can pretty much
Mm.
assume that if you have gastrointestinal issues, if you have microbiome issues, if you have even endocrine issues, if you have autoimmune issues, your fascia is involved. And so what that ends
It's
up being is fascia becomes a one road in, where you should actually address it first and see how the rest of the symptoms actually subside. And that's what happened to me, is that I would do these things, and all of a sudden my symptom that I thought was the source, right, is changed, is healing, is no longer bothering me, even to like some of the brain trauma that I had and a lot of the brain injuries of concussions and stuff. It's crazy what fascia like has its fibers into and how it's regulating stuff. So my experience has been that by the age of about 20, almost everybody has some type of damage to their fascia. And you have to think about fascia kind of like the sunless surface or the underside surface of your skin. So the way that you can go out into the desert without sunscreen and scorch your skin,
mm,
you can do the same thing on the inside by how you handle loads, by how you don't handle loads, by how you eat. You can actually create this low grade inflammation all the way through, which is basically like sunburning the skin, but it's underside of your fascia. And what this does is it starts a process called glycation. And so glycation is where the fibers of fascia start to get sticky. And you have to picture it kind of like honey that sits too long and it kind of gets those
I
yeah.
small
don't like
crystals.
that.
If you stir the honey after, small crystals have formed, the crystals will be reabsorbed into the honey and it will be smooth again. But if you let the honey sit too long, if glycation exists too long, then there's irreversible damage on the inside. And so, well, that's what they say.
Mm.
And then I think that what GST does is actually reverses irreversible damage. And it comes from a different process and a very specific, that's the kind of the technology, whatever. So the point being that when you are able to, when you get to 21, and 18 to 21 is really when pathology starts showing up for people. And then there's another big jump at the end of your 30s where it starts to show up in, if you have a really good body and you might have the damage, but it doesn't start talking to you. Um, then you want to just start working into kind of good fascial hygiene. Like, I think it's
Yeah.
interesting that the only medicine field that really is focused on a very strong technique of prevention is dentistry. And we know that if you floss and if you brush And if you fluoride and rinse, you are going to have really nice teeth. And those same principles can align with fascia. If you do your mechanics, they're called hydraulic fascial mechanics, and you do it every day through regular intervals, you will not have the type of damage that is naturally occurring in the tissues by just living. So
That was going to be my next question, like what is the teeth brushing or the flossing of the
great,
fascia, the equivalent of that? And you
great.
described it perfectly.
Yes, I distilled it
The
to 3
question
actions. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
The question is, can we say, I mean, I'm immediately assuming that women are more prone to this than men because it's a man's world. I'm just looking at even how the cars are, designed. They're designed in a way that doesn't suit a woman's body. So already we're in misalignment as is. Do neurodivergent people have a more increased likelihood as well because this world is not designed for them in a way? And is there a link between the two? And is there a link between being a woman and having these fascial issues?
So the answer is yes and yes. It doesn't mean that men don't have it, but fascia is extremely sensitive to endocrine function and especially the endoestrogen channel. So women will notice that their symptoms of fascial tensions will flare up during certain times of their luteal phase when there's a
Mm.
huge shift in testosterone, progesterone, and estrogen balancing. And so if you already have the proclivity to have that as a woman, you will experience more heightened kind of sensations and influences of that. The truth is that there's different types of
Pregnancy.
fascia, different what do I want to say? Combinations of ratios of elastin to collagen to not relaxin, reticulin. All of these different components of fascia from the cellular structures are different in men and women. So men tend to be less flexible, right, than women. And so it's not surprising that fibromyalgia shows up a lot more inside of women than
Mm.
men. But from a neurodivergent standpoint, it's very interesting because neurodivergent people are hypersensitive. They are actually feel things much more than people who are not neurodivergent. And so if you have these fascial dysfunctions, you will feel them more intensely because of the way your
Ah.
sensors work, because of the way the receptors in the tissues are firing and wiring to your
Mhm.
brain. And so there's kind of like multi-tiered answers that a man who's
Mhm.
neurodivergent has more sensitivities than a woman who's not. So in that way, there's not as much crossover. But when it comes to the hormonal issue, women will have it. And if you're a neurodivergent hormonal woman, you probably have the most of the most, right? Because you have
Wow.
all those conditions. Some of them are related to sensory, some are related to hormone, and some are related to brain, right? So that's kind of the triad of influence.
Thank you so much for
That's
explaining
so
that. And I
fun
think
for us.
yeah, it is, isn't it? I was just as you were explaining, I'm like, wow, yeah. That explains a lot. And that explains the chronic fatigue also. I think chronic fatigue happens more in women uh, and
Yes.
neurodivergent
Yeah.
people. And it has to do with a lot of things like the burnout, the masking for
Yeah.
women. It's a lot of things. Or
Also
go.
think that chronic fatigue and neurodivergence go hand in hand because we do not have a good and right system for finding true medication thresholds. And the way that we prescribe medication is very block. And what I learned very early is the temperament kind of medicine, where it's like, I had this woman who came in, she was in college at UCLA, and she had adrenal fatigue, complete burnout, and actually had been hospitalized twice for it. And I asked her, "Are you medicated?" Yes. She told me the amount of medication that she was prescribed to take.
Mm.
I was like atrociously like appalled. I'm like, number one, you can be super neurodivergent. You can be super ADHD and need very, very little medication. Or you can hardly be ADHD at all and you need tons of medication. And the only way to find that out is not a doctor prescribing you. It's you starting with small doses and listening to your body and finding your own prescription, finding the actual one for you. So I don't want to say anything more than that other than I think that we have to at least include that in the conversation. I need medication, but my
Yeah.
medication can actually be working against me and creating these
Yeah.
heightened things that are already in there. It's an exaggerating
Mm-hmm.
tool, right? So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I I think I think that's a really important conversation to have because I personally had like a negative experience to being like to stimulants.
yeah.
Um it just made all of my sensory sensitivities like way worse.
Mhm.
And my light sensitivity as
That
well.
can that can be
Um
related to actually dehydration. A lot of stimulants dehydrate tissues, and that's one of the biggest things for fascia is its need of hydration. And so not only just
I'm
drinking.
constantly dehydrated because they also give me like salt pills to take every day. Not like literally salt pills,
Right,
but
right, yeah.
the heart medication, it's like super salty. I could taste
It's
it.
super salty. It does change your
Um,
sodium levels, and that
yeah.
influences hyd.
Anyway, so yeah, this all just sounds like related to me personally. It's
Yeah.
almost like I summoned you here.
I think that what's
But
fun is that it unifies. You guys are so knowledgeable, and you have so much, like, collective experience, but also, like, medicine and body and, all of this physiological knowledge.
Okay.
You have your own journeys within the body, and I think what I love about fascia is just it's a connector. It infuses it. It
mm,
actually gives you this, like, context of why, because I think a lot of people, whether it's because of their neurodivergence or just their emotional stuff, is like, why do I have this? Why am I so
Yeah.
inflamed? Why can't my plantar fasciitis, like, blah, blah, blah? And we have these endless questions of why. And I don't know, I tell people sometimes that fascia, like, is literally changes the world view from flat to round. It's like literally we used to
Wow.
think that
Yeah.
the world was flat, and our current way of relating to the body is like this flat, linear, solid mechanical structure, and fascia's like, "Oh gosh, let me show you. You can sail around the world and there's answers on the other side, and look what we can do here." So, it's kind of exciting, but I love that you guys are able to bring that to your podcast because I think that's really important, making that connection.
You're the mystic piece that
thank
we
you.
were looking for, I think. And again, I think
Mhm.
all the episodes were leading up to this.
Yeah.
Mm.
Which is so funny because I didn't actually take biology in high school. I didn't take chemistry. I didn't take physics. I mean, all of this was out of like necessity that I'm like, what is this? Is this what this is called?
Mhm.
So here's the deal. Fascia is 70% water, 30% fiber. Your body, even from a molecular level, is 90% water if you look deep inside of that molecular structure. What that means is that we are not solid creatures, we are fluid creatures. And what that means is that all of a sudden we are not in the branch of physics called solid mechanics, where we see muscles as pulleys and bones as levers. We're actually more like a water balloon being furled through the air every time you move. And so what that means is that we are governed by different laws and we have
Like
different.
that video game, Human Fall Flat. Sorry.
Is that a video? I don't even know video games. That's really funny. Yes, splat. Humans fall flat. I think that I could picture what that is relating to. Um, and so when we start looking at diagnosis, and I first started this line of thinking from a book that I read called You're Not Sick, You're Thirsty. It was written by this incredible scientist and doctor who was held in Iran in the 80s in a prisoner of war thing. You should look it up. I think you'd really enjoy the message. But the idea was that our medicine is based on like focusing on the solid part of the body rather than the solvent part of the body. And that is really an inaccurate reading. And what I started saying is that we diagnose based upon, especially in our physical ailments, as if you are too flexible, you're weak. Or if you have a low back pain, we need to strengthen and make your core more solid, right? Everything
Mm.
is this, in order to be able to fix something, you're needing to tighten it, you're needing to strengthen it, you're trying to make it more solid. We, take it to our conception of solidification of our like stability, like our gospel of stability. We have to be stable. And fascia just has a really different approach to this because it's a
Balance.
fluid and it responds that way. So, fluid dynamics is the science that we start working in when you want to make 3 actionable changes. And the most accurate way of seeing the science is in the kind of sub branch of fluid dynamics called hydraulics. And hydraulics is the pressurization of water to move things. And a simple hydraulic mechanism is to help the audience understand is a syringe where you have the cylinder and you have a plunger. And when you pull the plunger through the cylinder, you can draw fluid in. And when you push the plunger back towards the tip of the cylinder, you push the water out. And this creates a pump-like action, okay? Now, your body and the way fascia organizes all the way down to the fibrils of fascia is in tubes. You are built in tubes, not sticks, okay? So when you start looking at how movement and the anatomy of the human body works, it works through compression, traction, and rotation. These are the three elemental actions that we need in our body constantly. We need to do this throughout our day, and we need to do it when we play, and we need to look at life as a jungle gym. And so let's talk about what compression looks like. Compression for the listener is like a primal squat. It's where we were anthropologically down by the fire as hunter and gatherers, right? We'd crouch really low. We would, even planting, even harvesting, we were always having dynamics low to the ground. And then we would swing through the trees and climb to the mountains, and that would be the traction, right? The compression is pushing the plunger. The traction is pulling the plunger, the hanging. And then we would rotate. We would throw spears and we would run and we would do more walking. These three rotation, is the amalgamation or the hybrid of both compression and traction. When you rotate a three-dimensional structure, you have what's called a helix, and you have a long side and a short side. Length is the traction, and the short side is the compression. So rotation is creating all three of these things. When you look at anatomical structures, you have flexion, which folds things closer together. You have extension of the joint, which pulls the soft tissue into traction. And then we do these like lateral movements of pedestrian walking that actually bring it out. This process for fascia is akin to hand washing a knit sweater. You dunk the sweater into the vat of water and all the fibers loosen. That's compression. It's called compression stretching because it actually loosens things when you compress three-dimensional structures. You pick the sweater up out of the water and all of the debris is being pulled down by the traction of the water against the fibers. And you do this a couple times and then you rotate it and you rinse it out and you take out the static tensions of toxins that are toxins in the tissues. So those are the three actions, and now let's go into what it looks like in your everyday life. First thing in the morning, you should bring your knees into your chest while you're laying in bed, and you hug your chest, knees to your chest, almost kind of like a, what is it called? The happy baby, okay?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
take your legs out and spread like you're the Vitruvian man into the widest arc and arch of your body. And you try to arch your spine and push your hands as wide and your feet as far away as possible. Then you take your hand over, cross it to your left, twist, take your left hand, cross it to your the right, twist, climb out of bed, move on your way. Next, you start your pot of coffee. You grab onto your kitchen sink or a railing while your coffee is percolating. I don't know if people still say percolating. It's not a percolator, but you go to your kitchen sink or your railing, you put your toes close to the edge, grab onto the railing. It has to hold you. Pull back, and you're going to take your butt to the center of the room, and you're hanging backwards into traction. You bend your knees into a primal squat. It opens up your pelvis. It sets your spine free. It releases your equatorial line, which we can go into. You pull back into traction. Come up and arch your body forward like you're doing a standing cobra. Twist your body right and left. Go get your cup of coffee to get dressed. Next thing you're going to do, right? So you're like starting to layer these actions. And we have videos on YouTube and where you can kind of
Perfect, yeah.
find. I have a free gift of it's called the 7-Day Body Revival that all of your people can have access to. And it really kind of
Excellent.
explains this and shows it in concept and then in practice. But the idea is that if you understand these three tools, compression, traction, and rotation, you will start to layer them in, and looking at life, you'll be like, okay, here's a parking meter. I'm going to do my traction stretches. And then, oh, there's a chain link fence while I'm waiting my son to get out of soccer. I'm going to go over and do it there. Oh, I have 4 seconds before I'm going to meet my date in the restaurant and I've got anxiety and my back starting to tighten. I'm going to go to the handicap ramp and I'm going to just pull off of the banister, do this 3 times. I'm about to travel and so world becomes your jungle gym and you are microdosing this through your life. True change, and I think that Sarah would agree with me, and you probably learned this in your stuff with Sarah Hind, is that true change is microdosing through moments, right?
Yeah.
Mastering a moment, and then you master the movement. And I think that sometimes, at least me as an ADHD person, I get overwhelmed by the magnitude of what needs to be done. Another thing I have
Yes.
to incorporate. And
100%.
what's really powerful about what I'm proposing for people is that in the brain, in the same area that you have your hunger reflex, your thirst reflex, your sex drive, you have a motion reflex. Your fascia feeds the desire to stretch. It's called pandiculation. And you see it in lions and tigers. And right when they sleep, your dog gets up from a nap and does its downward stretch. And it's doing the same actions in the same orientation that the human body needs. And when you do that, it actually becomes an embodied desire. So instead of your suggestion of, I have to remember to do this every day, another thing my executive function is going to fail at. No,
No, your body
when you
craves
start
it.
doing it, your body craves it. Your mind will
Yeah.
immediately center and get clear. You will immediately decompress the executive clutter in the front of your forehead. And so that's
Amazing.
really nice that you can just be embodied, and it takes the load off of your mind rather than another thing to do, which loads the mind in. Does that make sense?
100%. 100%. I love this. I love how we went full circle
I
in all of
love
this.
how a lot of those exercises specifically are things that like my body already craves. I
Yes.
always have to do like the praying pose, and then like I like lean back to like stretch the hip. Like yeah, I love that for
I
me.
think it's because you're
I
embodied, Sarah, and also your Ehlers-Danlos syndrome naturally will take load and doesn't have the same elasticity of demand to move that load because of the hypermobility and the lack of tensile strength in the tissues. So what I
Yeah.
want to say and
My
just highlight
dad
there.
and all the males in my family are super like muscle building, like physique, like so good looking.
I
Um,
think, yeah, it's
and all the women have thyroid dysfunction and our bodies are sex. I look great though.
you do
You
look
do.
so great. I just want to say I wanted to highlight that, Sarah, for the listener, it's really about like trusting your body wisdom. What you're saying is, I
Mm,
already do this, and I just
yeah.
connected it for you to probably why your brain is wanting to do that
Yeah.
more maybe than anybody else. What's really devastating is if you are living in a tight, collagen thick body, it's almost like you've lost the urge to stretch because it's so lethargic, it's so heavy. And so that's when it's kind of a little bit more of an effort to get the feeling, to get past it. I was not a flexible human at all
Mhm.
by any stretch of the imagination. And it was painful for me to try to stretch and dance and go to yoga classes. And I'm like, until I discovered this fascia flux where I'm like, oh, and talk about immediate gratification,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Isn't that right?
Yes, you're
When
saying it
you feel
perfectly, but yeah.
okay, good. When you feel a stretch, when you feel a pain in your stretch, when it hurts to kind of touch your toes and hamstring, a lot of times people are like, I just can't stay in the moment. But if you use the fascia flux, it gave me immediate relief. And all of a
Yeah.
sudden, I was like, oh, I can tolerate this much discomfort for this much relief. That's a no brainer. And so then that's
Yeah.
really what, makes you want to chase the pain and find, the potential behind it.
Wow. And people can definitely get more instructions from, I can't believe that this is like for free, the 7-day guidance
Yeah.
that you
7-day
have.
body revival. And I have a lot of tools
Uh,
on YouTube, but we also have a community, a studio online where I teach you the techniques, and we have collections for specific body things like pregnancy. I walk you through
How would
9
we
months of
find that?
pregnancy. I've got a
Please,
Gulf fight.
how can people reach you? Yeah.
Oh, come to GST Body as a website,
Yeah.
gstbody.com. You can follow me online at Instagram, which is GST Body. That's the handle. Or
That's
that's
amazing.
kind of
Yeah.
where I give a lot of like tips and where you can see us doing certain exercises. And then my Anna Rahe of GST is the handle for my personal account. And that's where I kind of show you GST in action, whether I'm with a vacuum or whether I don't have a clean lady right now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, I got to fix my back while I'm doing this. So Anna Rahe, and I'll just tell the people, and they'll get this in
What
the
do you
show
do with the
notes. It's
vacuum?
pronounced Rahe, like ray of sunshine, and it's spelled not Ray. It's Rahe. I probably should have just changed it for my my call sign. Rahe. So Rahe.
Perfect.
Interesting. What is
I
that
love
last
this.
name?
Good. Can I ask you guys a question? What is it that they're wanting to come and find you?
I think the feedback from listeners has been minimal. And it's so super frustrating because we're having awesome conversations. And
We
unless I
are.
title it like clickbait, the
The thing
algorithm's
is, I
like,
mean,
fuck
yeah,
off.
never before have we
Yeah.
had more wisdom or more information and so little wisdom that goes with it, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I share that sentiment. I think it's hard. Like, what are people
Yeah.
looking for? And
I'll
all
tell
of
you
this
what,
other
though, we've forgotten how to communicate with each other. And some of us were never taught how to communicate with people who are different from us, too.
That's
So I
right.
know for
Right.
sure um that's definitely on top of everyone's mind because it's affecting emotions everywhere, and it's affecting how
Interesting.
we move through the world
That's
everywhere.
right. That's right. Atrophied, like connection. Like our
Yeah.
muscles are atrophied for community. I was just thinking about it
Yeah.
the other day. I'm like, never have we been more connected and so not in communion, right? There's
Yeah.
no dialogue, there's no conversation.
Yeah. I want to make sure that my kids do have a community to exist in.
Yeah.
And so I'm very much trying to preserve all the things that I remember about community when I was a kid
Mhm.
that may or may not have ever existed.
I think it existed.
Love that.
Usually we finish with a
I
little
think, yeah,
card
it's a great
pull
way to finish for
because
sure.
that's fun. Jins, what makes you
Mm.
feel
Ooh,
loved?
it's just
You
a
go
hug.
first.
A hug. Yeah.
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 I was gonna say that's compression, and that's why, is it consolidates all of the universe into your skin. And so I was gonna say
Yeah.
something similar.
Hmm.
Mine is waking up on
That's
Sunday
amazing.
and
So
Saturday
I
mornings with all 3 children
love
smothering me in bed
hugging
and giving
other
me compression
people.
kisses.
What about you, Sarah?
Yeah, I don't know, and I think it's because I give really good hugs. And so I know that
Interesting
I'm
distinction.
giving someone else a pleasurable experience. And I feel like I'm trying to force my like love and care and calm into them. Um,
Hmm.
yeah.
Mhm. That's
Love
beautiful.
that.
That's giving, right? That's giving.
Thanks for being here. If you want to connect with the Neurodivergent Report, you can find us at ND Report Pod on Instagram, Threads, TikTok, YouTube, Blue Sky, Substack, etc.
If you're looking to support the show, the best thing you can do is subscribe and leave us a 5-star review. Please do that.
And hey, if you want to check out more about us, visit our website at ndreportpod.com. And you can also go there if you want to be a guest contributor on the show.
Until next time, be well, do good.
Bye.